Kirsten Sundell. Chris, thank you for your channel and blog. Although I enjoy all of your videos, that series with Sunny Pereira on Scientology, mental health, and the introspection rundown may be the best work you've done yet. The hair stood up on the back of my neck when Sunny read Hubbard's definition of psychosis, and the two of you described what happens on the introspection rundown. Surely this is thought reform at its most dangerous. My question is this. Given Hubbard's definition of a psychotic/insane individual as a person who is screwing up at work, chronically ill, demanding a transfer, or wanting out, how often are Scientology staff or Sea Org members who are disaffected, exhausted, sick, or just want to leave subjected to the mental and physical torture of the introspection rundown as opposed to being put on the RPF? At what point is a Sea Org member branded as insane versus just bad? Chuck Beatty's story in the comments made me wonder if this is a common occurrence for Sea Org members who reach a breaking point and want out. Would a lovely person like Kay Rowe be branded as insane for the crime of having chronic untreated health problems? Okay, so Scientology is an extreme destructive cult that engages in some pretty destructive behavior, sexual assault, covering up pedophilia. The laundry list of things is quite long, and so it's very easy for me to understand that we could take this to the worst possible interpretation at all possible times, and that doesn't really work out in the real world. For example, you asked about Kay Rowe. Well, there was plenty of opportunity in the years that Kay Rowe was suffering from medical problems, and by the way, if anybody doesn't know who she is, she's a former Sea Org member who I did an extensive interview with on my channel, which you can check out. All that time, over all those years that she was suffering from, fatigue and chronic fatigue and problems with all sorts of body problems, they did not consider her insane, and they did not put her on an introspection rundown. And they very definitely could have done that if that's the usual treatment for somebody who is having chronic medical problems and wants to leave. That's not the case. Very, very, very few people have been given an introspection rundown over the years. I'm talking about a small number of people, like I'd say in the tens. I wouldn't say in the hundreds. I certainly wouldn't say in the thousands. It's not used that often. What's used much more often are security checking, pain, punishment drive type activities, sending a person to the galley. When Kay and I talked about the sort of things she had to endure, one, just having to be on post and do her regular job became torturous all by itself because she wasn't allowed to get some time off in the day, go take a break, with her feet and her other parts of her body that were blowing up. She just wasn't allowed any kind of decent schedule. So that alone becomes its own form of punishment. You don't have to pile on an introspection rundown on top of that, or an RPF. People aren't sent to the RPF just because they want to leave Scientology or leave the Sea Org. That wouldn't work out so good because you have to sign paperwork that says you're willing to be on the RPF and you're volunteering to be there. And and if somebody wants to leave the Sea Org, that's not where they're going to put them. They're going to do other things with them, right? If they want to punish somebody for having done something that the Scientology thinks is morally reprehensible or treasonous to the Sea Org, that's when the RPF assignments start happening. And as we've gone over in my video on Thursday, they're not even doing that anymore. So, we'll see. One thing I didn't particularly mention in that video on Thursday that I should have is they never canceled the RPF, so they could always bring it back. There's nothing stopping them from starting RPF assignments today if they want to. But generally, again, like I said, they wouldn't normally be assigning people to the RPF who want to leave or who have medical problems. People with medical problems don't do well on the RPF. So that wouldn't generally be the course of handling, right? The security checks, the heavy, the labor, doing physical labor during the day. As I explained on Thursday, there's the Cat B EPF, the Category B EPF, where they're sending people for fix-up and stuff. They'll do that kind of stuff. Now, as far as the broader context of your question, though, I wanted to make this point. Hubbard didn't define a psychotic as somebody who wants to leave and is transferring and all that. He didn't do that by accident. That was on purpose. He purposefully took all the behavior of people I mean, this is just my opinion, of course. I didn't talk to Hubbard about this, but seems pretty clear to me that he looked at all the behavior he didn't like that was going on in the Sea Org around him, because when he wrote this stuff, he was on his boats and doing his little faux Navy Sea Org deal. And he went, these people are thorns in my side. These are people who give me trouble. These are the people who aren't getting their job done. So you know what? We're going to call them psychotic, because that's what they are. Because Hubbard was so fanatical and so into his vision of, world peace and understanding and through Scientology that he thought that the best way to go about accomplishing that was punishment drive. And so anybody who was against him or against his effort, his Sea organization, his little mini army, was clearly nuts. Because look, that we're doing yeoman's work here. We're doing the sane work. We're doing the stuff that matters. The Sea Org is the only group on the planet that is actually changing conditions for the better. So if you're not with us, you're obviously crazy. So he had no moral qualms with calling anybody who didn't want to be there or was sloughing off or who, was otherwise creating trouble. Yeah, they're psychotic, and off they go. So that was kind of what I think was behind that policy or writing those issues about psychosis, and behind what ended up being this introspection rundown, which basically just tortured people who'd had enough, and made them even more docile and more compliant rather than more sane. That's really the end result of the introspection rundown. So I don't know. Those are just some thoughts off the top of my head about all that.